Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go.
10 hours. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It's here. It's Tuesday, July 30th, 2024. Should be your favorite day of the year. It's a great day. It's Major League Baseball's trade deadline. It's a real deadline, folks. It's exciting. Trades happening in the middle of the night all day. 10 hours from now, it's over. 11 hours from now, we'll be able to give you winners and losers. Well, we'll probably do that in tomorrow's show. You know, before we start, Coke, we have so much to go through. There was a trade made last night. The Atlanta Braves are going full Eddie money. I want to go back, do it all over, but you can't go back. I know. Yeah, the Braves last night traded for the World Series MVP from 2021, Soler, Giants. Before I actually, okay, let me do this in a totally organized way. Ready? 12/18/69. There's just under 10 hours left until the Major League Baseball trade deadline. You're going to see a lot throughout the day about players who could be on the move, should be on the move. Then as soon as 6 o'clock comes, you're going to see lists. There'll be lists of winners and losers. And I've got a problem with that. As a former executive, you cannot evaluate who's the winner and who's the loser today. No one would have had the Atlanta Braves as a winner of the 2021 trade deadline. And they went on to win the World Series, having acquired Rosario, Duvall, and Soler at the trade deadline. Don't tell me that people are upset that Doyle Alexander was traded for John Smoltz, or that Larry Anderson was traded for Jeff Bagwell, and what a brilliant move it was by the Astros, and how the Blue Jays are idiots. The reason I don't appreciate that is I would like you to judge these trades when executives judge them. I want to explain to you how we would judge them as a president or an owner. You've got to see how the prospects turn out. You've got to see how your season turns out. You've got to see how the player turns out. Everyone is so absolutely excited because the Blue Jays were able to turn a free agent to be Kikuchi into maybe the best prospect traded so far at this deadline. That's true. Jake Bloss has a chance to be an amazing pitcher, no doubt. And it is also true that the Blue Jays were smart to have traded him, and the Astros need pitching for sure, and that he's a rental. But it doesn't mean that the Blue Jays are geniuses and the Astros are morons. It means that every single year, trades happen when there are two teams that have the same point of view about a situation. The Astros needed pitching. The Blue Jays were not going to re-sign Kikuchi and are not going to make the playoffs, and therefore they've got a rental on the market ready to roll. The Astros overpaid. How do you know? What price would you pay to keep a dynasty going, to get to the championship series an 8th straight year, to win another ring? Would you give up your best pitching prospect, a future Hall of Famer? You'd prefer not to. But if you can get back, then of course you do. So don't pay attention to the list. When I give you winners and losers tomorrow, it's going to be based on right now, what I feel happened now. Of course, we could look back a year, 2, 3, 4. It's why I liked giving long-term contracts to our baseball employees. We were one of the first teams to really do that, give really long-term deals all the way down the line, both in order to stop poaching, so to stop your AGM or GM from going to another team, but also it gave me a better chance to evaluate. It's so difficult to look at your GM and say, wow, you had a terrible deadline. The way we evaluate deadlines at the moment is, did our president of baseball ops or GM, did they accomplish what they needed to financially? Because sometimes, like every year, a GM is told, all right, you've got blank million you can take on, or you've got blank million you have to shed. When 6 o'clock comes tonight, believe you me, Eastern, presidents are evaluating their GMs. You better have gotten where you're supposed to get to. It's a big day for the commissioner's office. Commissioner's office has to be on point. They're getting LOIs sent to them throughout the day. The commissioner is on speed dial. Today is Bud Selig's birthday. Happy birthday, Bud Selig. The commissioner has to approve when money changes hands. And the reason why tonight you may hear about trades after 6 p.m. is that all you have to do is have it into the commissioner's office, reported in what the trade is. You don't have to have it approved by 6 p.m. So very often what we would have is a lower level, like an intern. Hey, sit in that corner, have the commissioner's office on the phone, talk about the weather, talk about clothes, talk about the Olympics. I don't care, because we are going to make sure that when we do a last second trade that we get it into the commissioner in time, because we were always getting money. So last night, the Braves decided, let's try to bring it back. Can you believe that they are paying all of Jorge Soler's money in what was an unbelievable overpay by the Giants in a deal that the Braves would not want to do? They've agreed to pick up the full bill for Soler. They gave back Matzik and got Jackson, but it doesn't matter what the other parts of the trade are. The fact is the Giants got their prayers answered. It was a bad signing when it started, but the reason why they signed Soler is they said, hey, listen, let's see if he can maybe give us some power, give us a bat, because we are built to win. Of course, they didn't win. Soler is not playing well. And the question is it a change of scenery? I'm trying to think, Coca, the number of times that we tried to do a reunion with a player, bring a player back who we used to have, bring him back thinking it's going to be like it was. We did it with a manager, brought back Jack McKeon. God, I think I did it with Guillermo Mota. We had him with the Expos and the Marlins. There's a bunch of players who we said with Mike Mordecai, hey, let's try that again. Here's the thing. When you try to repeat a miracle, you generally end up with something far less than a miraculous ending. But the temptation, and I get what Anthopoulos is doing, absolutely, because the temptation to give into the view, we lived with this player, we know what this player is capable of, we saw him win the MVP. How easy is it to capture lightning in a bottle? Pretty hard. How easy is it to do it twice? Nope. Can't be done. I don't blame the Braves for trying, though. But man, I blame them for taking on his money. Someone asked me recently about 3-team trades, because there was a big-time 3-team trade yesterday. And I wanted to talk about how those trades come together, because they don't start on a conference call. That is a misconception that GMs get together like, all right, let's figure this out. What happens is you have a team, we're going to call them A, B, and C. Team A calls Team B and says, I want this guy. Team B says to Team A, this guy's available, but I don't see anything on your Team A that I like, because if I'm going to trade my guy from Team B, I want a player from Team C. Well, Team A says, well, I don't have that player. And Team B says, that's okay. Go get that player. And Team A says, all right, I'll make some calls. Team A calls Team C and says, hey, listen, I want to get this player. Oh, what do you want him for? Don't ask me questions like that. It never comes up in a conversation. Oh, you only want this guy because you're doing a trade with Team B. You don't really want my player from Team C. You're trying to do a trade with Team B. I'm not sure I want to help you, Team A. No. Team B says, all right, you want this player, Team A? Here's who I want. All right, I can do that. And then A makes a trade with B. A makes a trade with C. and you've got yourself a 3-team trade. Sometimes A, B, and C work, and that there's always a centerpiece, like the son of the trade, SUN, where everyone is revolving around that team. And that team is making trades and coordinating about who's going where and how that's going to work. And the reason why it's so important to have a son in the middle of a trade is that it's far too complicated if you have 3 GMs or 4 GMs all trying to figure out the moving pieces. No one's got the time or the inclination. So naturally, the team that starts it is the one that ends up being the son and is the one who coordinates with the other teams. And we had that 3-team trade with the Cardinals and the Dodgers and the White Sox yesterday. And people are crushing the White Sox. They didn't get enough prospects for trading Fetty and Pham and Kopech. Those guys got traded. St. Louis got Pham back. I can't imagine. Maybe it's because they know him. To know him is to love him. But I guess he's helpful to a postseason run. Maybe. St. Louis certainly did a good job putting its rotation together in the offseason. Gray and Lynn, add in Fetty. Need it. Good idea. Dodgers got what they wanted, a utility man here. What an example, the Dodgers. They took on money with Edman. The guy hasn't played an inning this year. He's been hurt. Could he come back? He's a utility player. He's Alfredo Amezaga to all 22% of you who know that name. I was fascinated why the trade was made. The White Sox, Miguel Vargas from the Dodgers was the big piece. He's got a chance to be decent, maybe above average. The White Sox, I expect to be busy today, fielding calls and not making deals. Crochet's not going to get traded. I don't care what you're reading anywhere. No team is trading for Crochet. Oh, there's tremendous interest. I am standing, and I'm happy to say if I'm wrong tomorrow because we'll recap the entire trade deadline. But give me a break. Louis Robert Jr., who wants him? It's going to be interesting. You want to talk a little bit about the Giants and their salary and their luxury tax payment and how they're panicked trying to get under it? There's a great article that Andrew Baggerly of the San Francisco Chronicle wrote. Ken Rosenthal talked about it in The Athletic as well. They have to find a way to cut a tremendous amount of salary. They have to cut like $16 million of salary during this trade deadline to get down. And that is something that is very important for them to do. They can't do it by trading Blake Snell because Snell got so much of his money as a signing bonus. He got like half his salary this year as a signing bonus. So Snell probably only has $7 million of cash left to go. But it would help now if they move Soler. They must be celebrating. It's 5 a.m. in San Francisco. God, they must be so. When you get a team, I'm having great memories. When you get a team to take a player who you did not think had a market, and on top of that, you get the team willing to take on the money, it is cool in the gang time. You would sit there in the trade room and you would just feel so good. I mean, it sucks that you have to trade guys when you're not in it and you thought you'd be in it. But when you get an upside financial surprise, I mean, maybe it's just me, but that was good business. When you ask a player to play a different position, lie to me. Tell me that you'll move. Tell me you'll play the position, please. Gleyber Torres came out yesterday. I had to check this twice because I get fooled so often on the Intergoogle. Gleyber Torres said that he's not thrilled with playing third base. Quote, "I'm a second baseman. I play second." Gleyber, you're about to be a free agent. You stink at second base. You're not nearly the player you thought you were going to be or that the Yankees thought you were going to be. And what you should really be saying out there to the market as you go into the market, because the Yankees are not re-signing you under any scenario, what you really should be saying is, hey, man, I'll play anywhere as long as it's somewhere facing the catcher. Give credit where credit is due to Jazz Chisholm Jr. Asked about playing third base. I could go and play anywhere and help my team win. For me, it's just going somewhere, especially a winning team. And they're asking me to go somewhere to help them win. I'm definitely going to go out there and do it. And then he went out, he took infield, he hit a home run in yesterday's crushing of the Phillies, which blew our nothing personal pick of the day. Yes, his second home run counts, but it was against a position player, though history will show it is a 2 home run game. I just can't get over what I would do if one of my players just refused publicly. It's the same thing with the Crochet situation. I'd talk to the player. I would tell him that I was disappointed, tell him that I would have played it differently, and then I would have acted accordingly. There's no way I'm going to my owner and saying invest in Gleyber Torres, make him a Yankee for life. That's not the type of player you want. It'll be interesting to see where he plays next year. And I don't mean on the field. I mean for which team. There's always someone more desperate than you are, but sometimes you talk yourself out of a contract. I want to make a clarification before we move on here, Coco. We got a bunch of other things I want to get to today, but I want to make a clarification. A bunch of you reached out at David P. Samson on Twitter and at davidsamsonpodcast.com, all places you can reach me and send me messages and questions. I said something yesterday about clubbies getting tipped and cash. Just wanted to point out to you that the way it works when I started in baseball is we would give envelopes of cash to players when they got on the plane for a road trip. And they would use that cash to play cards with on the plane, but they would also use that cash to tip visiting clubbies at the end of every series. Some players were cheap, some players were very generous. What has happened since then is that tips are actually given uniformly to visiting clubbies in advance because they were tired of getting screwed, and the tips are added as income to players, so it's not done in cash envelopes anymore. I just thought you'd want to know that. That's a little clarification. Let me give you a few wait to sees about the trade deadline. And I'm going to book them, and they're going to be done in the next 9 hours and 43 minutes. Number one, Garrett Crochet will not be traded. Wait to see. Number two, Tanner Scott will be traded. He's the Marlins closer. He must be traded. There is no scenario if you are Peter Bendix of the Marlins and you wake up at 6 o'clock tonight and you have not traded Tanner Scott, you need to be terminated. That is a dereliction of duty. You have got an outperforming lefty closer. Move him. I'm blanking right now. Did I get it wrong? Is he a righty? Picturing Tanner Scott right now. Picturing Tanner Scott. This would happen to me when I was running a team, and I'd have to close my eyes and think about which way, because your brain can play a funny trick on you. Number three. Yeah, he's lefty. The Yankees and the Red Sox, forget the fact that they got Jazz, and the Red Sox got Danny Jansen from the Blue Jays. The Yankees and Red Sox will make another addition today. That's my third wait to see. Those are the three. I would point out, since we always talk about wait to sees, about what's going to happen, what's not going to happen, and then we revisit it, on March 28th, before the season started, I said the Baltimore Orioles will add at the deadline. Now, why would I have said that? Remember when they changed hands, new owner, they were going to be good, and the new owner is going to have new owner-itis. He's going to want to win a World Series in his first year as owner so he can be the belle of the ownership ball. Well, the Orioles have added at the deadline. Hello, Zach. Welcome to our rotation. I'm going to take that as a yes. So our nothing personal pick of the day was a disaster. Zach Wheeler got shelled. I was watching that game on Amazon. Does anyone else watch that? Coca, did you watch any part of that game on Amazon? Did you notice anything about the Yankee-Philly game on Amazon Prime last night? I couldn't help because normally, as you may know, I watch games on mute. But for whatever reason, I had the sound on. I had turned over from a movie or whatever it is that I was doing. And it was Joe Girardi on the call. Joe Girardi, the former manager of the Marlins, former manager of the Yankees, former manager of the Phillies. And he was talking about stuff that was the usual drivel. But he did point out something interesting, which was that Zach Wheeler has gotten shelled only twice this year. And once was the Orioles and once was the Yankees. The second time being yesterday, because Wheeler got absolutely shelled. And he said that could be their World Series opponents. And is that a concern for the team? So I wanted to just point out that when we are going through players and we're going through splits, we do lefty splits and righty splits. We do have in material that's given to us how a player has done against a pitcher. But keep in mind, sample size. It's not meaningful when you get a stat that says, oh, this player is 1 for 4, only a 250 hitter against that pitcher. Or this player hit 750 against this closer, 3 for 4. Meaningless. Absolutely meaningless sample size. So is it possible that Zach Wheeler has an issue with the Yankees and Orioles? Maybe, but it's way more likely he just had 2 stinkers and it happened to be against the Yankees and Orioles. So there wouldn't be a panic. You wouldn't be like, oh, we're not going to have Wheeler pitch game 1 of the World Series because he gave up runs against this team during the regular season. It just doesn't work like that. You go with your best no matter what. So we are 98 and 106 because the Phillies did not beat the Yankees. It was good to see Stanton back, always. Trade deadline, always interesting. So in about 9 hours and 39 minutes, there'll be 30 team meetings that will take place before the night games tonight. I don't know when everybody's playing today. I didn't check the schedule. But you generally have a team meeting after the trade deadline. There's a sense of relief for the sellers if you're still there and you're not competitive and you don't want to win. There's a sense of excitement when people go from crappy teams to good teams. There's a sense of relief when you're still on a good team that you weren't traded for a player for that good team to get better. There's just a calm that comes over the clubhouse where the players get together with the GM, team president, and you say, all right, boys, let's go right now. So the next week is going to be fascinating to see how teams respond post-deadline. There's nothing worse when a team slumps and you've tried to help them during the deadline. That's happened to me too. Tonight's pick is not based on the trade deadline. It's not based on winners and losers. It's not based on who's in the race. Guess what it's based on? Patrick Corbin. He's going for the Nationals, which means we got to get music for this, Coca. It's Corbin Day. Dun, 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 dun. Diamondbacks over Corbin and the Nats. What a great day for fans around baseball. Yesterday was. If you've got Comcast cable, you may not realize what a great day it was because you're so used to not having it in recent channels, certainly not in your last channel. But Comcast and Diamond have cut a deal. The bankrupt company found a carriage deal with Comcast, its third largest operator. And now games in Miami, Minnesota, anyone who's got Comcast cable, you're back, baby. The carriage deal has been made. So there's about 15 regional sports networks that are Diamond Sports owned. That's the group that you've heard about on the Sporting Class. You've heard about it here. They're in Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is a reorg. MLB is fighting, NBA, NHL. They are all fighting to keep them bankrupt in order for all digital rights and broadcast rights to revert back to the leagues. And that's only their second choice. Obviously, the first choice would have been for Diamond not to go bankrupt, for there to have been no disruption of the cable industry, for the model where teams get their rights deals that they signed and have the equity that they thought they were going to have in these channels as part of that deal, the equity which is worth about as much as this pen, $2.69. But it is true that the carriage deal does help Diamond when they go into court and say, MLB told us that we are not a going concern, but look at us go. We now have carriage deals. Our networks are on all these cable companies. Well, guess what? Diamond Sports gave it up. The whole dispute was about where people could find the channels on Comcast. Comcast wanted all Diamond Sports channels to be on an exclusive tier, on a higher price tier. Diamond said, man, we want to be on low tiers. Guess what? They're on the exclusive tier. So, does it really help? Will it change anything that happens for the reorg of Diamond? No. But of course, their CEO is trying to play it off totally differently as they begin to look at heading into court to go through their reorg plan. Their CEO is a guy named David. He said, not me, entering a new carriage agreement with Comcast, our third largest distributor, is a critical step forward in our restructuring effort. And we are pleased that fans will again be able to access broadcasts of their local teams through Xfinity. Not mentioned in the statement is, we are so sorry that you'll have to pay more, but you're going to get a few free months. It's really something, isn't it? He finished his quote by saying, we intend to move expeditiously to present a plan of reorganization to the court. Your Honor, look what we did. Sir, that's the deal that was on the table for you months ago. Are you sure that this is the panacea that you think it was? Well, Your Honor, we're just so pleased as punch that MLB didn't get its way. That's really the bottom line. It's just an FU to MLB. That's all this carriage deal is with Comcast, because it really is no greater for Diamond's creditors than not having a deal. But that's how it goes. All right, Coco. Let's take a break. I think we can do that now. I want to review a movie that was interesting, and then we have an Olympic update, starting with breaking news that Coco Gauff has been upset and she's out of the tennis. So it looks like she's going to have to settle for Snoop Doggie's pot medal. But we're going to have a few other updates and review a movie after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It is David Samson coming at you live every day, 8 a.m., 10 a.m. on the DraftKings Network. Of course, you can download and listen to the show, but then you'd be missing our set, carefully curated, every piece. If anyone notices anything different about the set today, get into my Twitter at David P. Samson, hit follow, and see if you can notice something different about today's show, July 30th, 2024, versus yesterday's show. The first person to notice a difference in the set, you're going to get a piece of Nothing Personal merchandise. I bet Coca didn't even notice. Somebody will, because you're going to do a side-by-side comparison and try to figure it out. My guess is someone will get it before the end of this live show. So it may be too late if you're listening to this later, but maybe not. I watched Family Affair on Netflix. Zac Efron, and I'm not going to talk about Zac Efron's face because I think he looks great. Nicole Kidman, not going to talk about her face. I think she looks great. I'm going to talk about the movie. How many times have you seen a movie where the boyfriend falls in love with the mother? Pretty good, right? We've seen a lot of this May, December stuff. We're used to older men and younger women. I don't know why, but there's nothing wrong with older women and younger men. I mean, of course, everyone's got to be of age. But it's getting old. Didn't we just review that Anne Hathaway movie? She played the mother of someone who fell in love with a rock star who was one of the guys from another movie. I can't remember the name of it. This is really happening to me. Hold on, stroke test. Hi, my name is David Samson. All right, I'm good. Here's the thing about Family Affair. It wasn't that good. I didn't believe the relationship. Now, it's fun to see Zac Efron and Nicole Kidman because you're thinking, do you think Zac Efron is saying to himself, I cannot believe what I am now doing with Nicole Kidman? I kept thinking about that with the Anne Hathaway movie, too. I wonder if that's in his head or if what's in his head is, oh, my God, 4 more hours of filming and then this day's over. And, man, I love the check I got. Or do you think he looks at the dailies and says, this is good drama. This feels good. I think we got ourselves a winner here. Family Affair, not a winner. You can pass on it. What you're not passing on, which has been made quite clear through all sorts of press releases, everybody's into the Olympics. I like it. Is it sort of a patriotic thing? Is everyone watching the Paris Olympics because you love the fact that you can wake up early in the morning and there's stuff going on? Live stuff? Do you care that on prime time you're watching tape stuff? I've been trying to, are you into table tennis? I am. Or badminton or archery or shooting? Hope not. Swimming's been amazing. What did Katie Ledecky do today? I think she won her heat by about 45 minutes, which was amazing. She had time like for a meal while she was sitting in the pool waiting for everyone else to finish. Are you keeping track of the medal table? Feeling a sense of pride? Look at us go. USA. Is Canada feeling happy? What about my friends in Indonesia, Hong Kong, Israel? Are you angry if you don't have a medal yet? Well, whatever the reason is, you're all watching. 10.9 million people watch the USA beat Serbia. 10.9 people watch LeBron James turn back time, go full share. 10.9 million, that's more than a lot of big-time sporting events. Peacock is getting reviewed fantastically for its Olympic coverage, which makes the USOC super, super happy because streaming is the thing. If you don't have Peacock, get it. I'm into the tennis. To me, it's always like the gold. Is it called the Golden Slam, Coca? When you win all 4 majors and a gold medal the same year. So you can have a career. It may not be called the Golden Slam. I'm saying that because it's a gold medal, but there's a word for it. To win all 4 majors and the Olympic gold. Obviously, to do that in 1 year, it's like the Abbott Marathon majors. You're amazing if you run all 6 major marathons in your life. Tokyo, Berlin, London, Chicago, New York, and Boston. If you run all 6 of those marathons, I've only done 4, but if you run all 6, you're a hero. You do them all in the same year, that is insane. The only player who's ever done it, remember, is Andre Agassi's wife, otherwise known as the incredible Steffi Graf. Remember when she did that all the way back so long ago? I can't even talk about how long ago. 1988. That's 36 years ago. Is that possible, Coca? Well, Rafael Nadal won't be able to do that. Djokovic won't be able to do it. He could do it for a career, but he didn't win the last major. He lost at Wimbledon to Alcaraz. But Djokovic beat Nadal yesterday. I felt for Nadal. Give him all sorts of credit for even being on the court, but just got absolutely torched by Djokovic. This morning, the world's number 2 lost in the 3rd round. She's got to be despondent. But you're all watching. The thing that you won't be able to watch, and the story that I am paying attention to, because I love Paris. I was lucky enough to have worked in Paris for a while, distributing newspapers. It's a city that, the city of lights, no doubt. The Seine River is a river. You know, there's one race I haven't done. There's a swim around Manhattan. There are triathlons that take place in the Hudson River. I've never done any of those because I grew up in New York, and there's one body of water that I said to myself, you know what, I'll pass, and that's the New York rivers. I've just seen too much having grown up there. If you've ever been on the Harlem River Drive and you look to the right, depending on if you're going north, and you're like, pass. Well, the Seine has always been that to me. Whether you've been on the Bateau Mouche, whether you've walked on the Ile de la Cité and gone to Notre Dame and you've looked over one of the bridges, whether you've gone with your partner and put a lock on a bridge and said, isn't this romantic? You've looked down, even if it's in a movie, and said, I don't think so. Well, what Paris did and what France did is they said, we're going to change all that for the Olympics in 24. We're going to spend billions of dollars and we're going to clean all the crap out of the Seine. But we have to hope it doesn't rain, because when it rains, there's a tide of stuff that comes and it ruins the Seine. Well, it's been raining. which means the water is not swimmable because there's so much E. coli in it that a wetsuit is not going to do the job. So what do? Well, you cancel training and you hope you don't have to cancel events. But for the second straight day yesterday, they did not allow any triathlon events, any training whatsoever. They keep testing the water. It keeps coming out as unsafe. And today is supposed to be the men's triathlon. The women are supposed to go tomorrow. And here's their quote. Given the weather forecast for the next 36 hours, Paris 2024 and World Triathlon are confident that water quality will return to below limits before the start of triathlon competitions on July 30th. That's today, and that statement was from yesterday. And I was thinking to myself, I hope it's not like a economic feasibility study for a new ballpark where you just keep finding someone to test it who looks and says, hey, look, I peed in the cup. It's totally fine. How exactly will the limits go down to a level where athletes are like, oh, that no problem? It's sort of like, it's not like don't ever drink and drive. Obviously, if you have one drink, do not drive. There's Uber, there are friends, there's taxis. Don't ever do it. But there's a limit to be legally drunk. Let's just say it's 0.1. So if you're 0.09, it's, hey, everything's good. I don't agree with that. There has to be a place where legally there is a line. I understand for purposes of enforcement, you have that line. But when it comes to swimming in a sea of crap, I'd rather it be zero. But don't worry, triathletes, it's 0.09, 0.1. We would have had you in the pool. But 0.09, put on those goggles, get your snorkel and your GTG. Come on, give me a small break. Women's basketball is something. Coca gave me a stat this morning that I was not aware of. And it's because I didn't pay enough attention to women's sports. And now I am, because I'm one of the millions of people who are a part of the Renaissance. I did always pay attention to women's track and field. That is true. Women's marathon running always interested me. Women's gymnastics always interested me in terms of Olympic sports. Bunch of women's sports. I didn't pay much attention to women's basketball. I admit it. I'm okay admitting that. They haven't lost a game since 1992. Did you all know that? Is that one of those things that, David, you're an idiot. Everybody knew that the women's Olympic team from the U.S. is 56-0 in their last 56 and haven't lost since 1992. All right. My bad. Well, they started their, do you call it a gold medal defense? Not you, Coca. They're the reigning gold medal holders. They crushed Japan 102-76. What else has been amazing? How about I'm a good ping pong player, Coca. I can beat almost everyone I play except for Jeff Conine, who's so good it's ridiculous. But these players in the Olympics, these professionals, and I first started realizing what was going on when I started having TikTok videos in my algorithm of these insane points. But of course, I thought it was like Forrest Gump, which was a lie. But now I'm watching table tennis in the Olympics, and I'm like, uh-oh, I need to improve my serve. What else is going on today that interests me? Some of you think that I'm too anti-player and that I only point out when players do things wrong publicly, or I point out their quotes or comments or things that they're doing or saying, and that I'm not in any way ever complimentary. That is not true. It's so not true that I want to prove a point to you and talk about Patrick Mahomes. Is there any player in the NFL who has a gripe as they look at Jordan Love's and Tua Tagovailoa's contract? They look at Trevor Lawrence's contract. Is there anyone who would have a bigger gripe than Patrick Mahomes? No. Patrick Mahomes made it his business to let his fans, his teammates, and the media know, I'm good here. He went out and went public saying that he does not feel underpaid. He was actually asked specifically, do you now feel underpaid? And he said, not necessarily. He said, quote, "It's awesome for the quarterback position, but I think all positions. I know every time a contract comes up, everybody looks at my average per year and everything like that, but I'm doing pretty well for myself," he said. "For me, it's just about going out there and winning football games." The reason why that quote caught my eye is that it came at the same time that I noticed another Kansas City Chiefs player talking to the media, and that was Taylor Swift's boyfriend. And what Travis was saying is, man, I'm tired. I've probably played in more games and touched the ball and played more snaps than anybody in the last number of years. And I got to just tell you, I'm here to post, but woof. I get it. When you've been successful and you play deep into the playoffs, you make the Super Bowl a bunch of years in a row, your body gets tired. No question about it. And I'm not going to in any way yuck on the yum of his personal life. Traveling the globe like a rock star, I'm in. Getting a #1 podcast, I'm in. Pointing out the fact that you've played so many snaps and that you're tired, I'm out. Pointing out that other players are getting these ridiculous contracts and you feel good and happy about it, I'm in. Patrick Mahomes, when he signed that deal, I remember so clearly thinking that that was a deal that people were misunderstanding. If you remember that deal, it was announced as this huge, what was it, Coca, like $350 million deal. But in order for him to get it all, he had to be Super Bowl MVP and he had to be the league MVP. And the money that was given to everyone as the number was the top end, like the maximum you can get. It's sort of like when you play Plinko on Price is Right. And in theory, you could win the maximum if you get the chip into the middle hole every time. But the minute the first trip doesn't do it, the maximum you can win gets minimized. That's the same with Patrick Mahomes' contract. It's no longer the contract that it was announced as, because years have passed and some years he wasn't the league MVP. Some years he wasn't the Super Bowl MVP. Patrick Mahomes had a decision to make. It was $450. Thank you. 10 for $450. Now, of course, it would be disingenuous for me not to mention that he's done some restructuring since he signed that original deal. And I totally understand what those restructurings were for. They end up benefiting the team. They end up helping him as well with some cash. All of that is normal. But at the end of the day, when he looks today, he's not the highest paid player in the NFL. It is important to communicate with your players when they are signing long-term deals, because I want everyone to be of sound mind and body, and I'm not going to necessarily count on the agents for proper communication. Anyone who signs a long-term deal who is the best in class, and I'm talking specifically about Giancarlo Stanton. When we signed him, it was the most money ever given to a player. It was over $300 million. I think it was 325 over 13. I remember sitting with him outside of the suite in which we were negotiating and saying, listen, you're going to be under the microscope. You're going to be the highest paid player. People are going to be after you. But just know it's not going to last long, because once we do this deal, and the reason why we will be so despised by the commissioner for this deal we're about to give you is that it's going to start a trend of lifetime deals, long-term deals, and eventually your record is going to be broken and you will just be another big contract. And we talked about the future. We talked about the years of 2018, 19, 24, 25, 26, 27. And it seems so far away. And now we're here. Patrick Mahomes knew exactly what he was doing when he signed that contract. And for him to acknowledge it, I just want to tell you that I appreciate it. There's another topic. Please give me 6 more minutes of your time. Do not roll your eyes. I'm asking you to use your brains. Yesterday, current President Joe Biden called for complete reform of the Supreme Court, and I wanted to discuss it. Please, I appreciate your time. You know I take it seriously. You know that I love your loyalty. And yes, we do sports, but we also do politics, culture, entertainment, movie reviews, picks. This is something that requires your attention. The president, despite what any candidate may tell you, the president alone has way less power than you may think. The president doesn't have the power to eliminate democracy. The president doesn't have the power to eliminate elections. The president doesn't have the power to assign someone to the Supreme Court. The president can nominate somebody. The president doesn't have the power to change the rules of any game. That is the purpose of three branches, independent branches of government: judicial, legislative, and executive. They're supposed to be independent. Raise your hands if you have started to believe that the Supreme Court has become more political in recent years and decades. Anyone? Bueller? Because I certainly have. Regardless of where your politics are. Because if you are conservative and you are thrilled where the court is and what the court is doing, I'm happy for you. But guess what? It means that one day it's going to be super, super liberal, and everything that's been done will be undone, just like everything's been undone now. You're back. You're fourth. For those of you who don't care or to vote or to register for down ballot races, Senate, Congress, you need the House and the Senate. You need the legislative branch to effectuate any of the changes that these presidential candidates saying they want to do. Calling for term limits in the Supreme Court, calling for a change to the immunity that presidents get. How do you argue against term limits? What is your thought on a lifetime appointment as a member of the Supreme Court, as the CEO of your company? To me, there's only one lifetime appointment on this earth, and that's being a parent. The minute you have a child for the rest of your life. I don't really understand why anyone would argue against term limits, because the people who are arguing against it are happy with who's on the Supreme Court and want the next president, if it's Trump, to assign two more potential ultra young conservatives and have them on the court for 50 years. I get it. But guess what? The liberals want to do the same thing. What would be wrong with nobody being able to do it? I can't find anyone to give me a cogent, non-political argument about this issue. And guess what? The Supreme Court is supposed to be non-political. Already, the Speaker of the House said, forget it. Dead on arrival. Not going to happen. And the president knows that. The president came out and said, I'm supporting a code of conduct that required justices to disclose gifts, not do anything political, recuse themselves when they've got or their spouses have financial or other conflicts of interest. Who is arguing with these reforms? The people who love that Alito's wife had a flag, and Alito said, I have no idea. My wife's my wife. I never saw the flag, didn't know what it meant. Clarence Thomas doing what he does, and there's plenty of liberal judges who do the same. It's not political. It's what's right versus what's wrong. Having a conflict of interest. It just happened in the Warner Brothers NBA case. The judge assigned to the case sent a letter to both sides, Warner and the NBA, saying, listen, in my old days when I was a lawyer, I represented an ABA team, the St. Louis Spirits, in a fight against the NBA. Just wanted to let you know. I'm not going to recuse myself, but if you want me to recuse myself, I'm happy to have a hearing. Totally standard to disclose and not have conflicts. It's normal. The whole purpose of our system of election is to make sure, the whole purpose of having term limits is to make sure that we are current, to make sure that people don't get comfortable and lazy and fat. And I don't mean in terms of weight. It all came for a reason. But in this climate, and if you're a part of it, stop. Stop with the rhetoric. Stop with the, if someone on the left says something, I hate them. Stop with it. You're on the right. I hate you for saying it. And anything you say, I am not agreeing with, no matter what. My thought is common sense should prevail. on both sides. I think that makes everything way easier. So when you've got a principle of common sense and you layer it with intelligence, with being educated and informed, and then you've got the view that you are into and appreciate business, I think you got yourself a community and a form of government. It's just business, but also information. We'll be back tomorrow. This is nothing personal.